Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. But Susie B. wrote in and said, how do we get our son to sit through a haircut? He's almost 8. It's getting tougher every time.
Yeah.
Parker wrote in and said, haircuts are usually a sensory nightmare for kids on the spectrum.
Yep.
And that his parents, he says, I know parents who had to get a barber's license so they can cut their hair in the group home that their kids live in. Wow, because they won't let them cut unless they have a barber's for their own children. They do have calming clippers out there, and haircuts are all about trust. Find a good barber or stylist that is good and trust the process. I will say that we've had Jim the barber on the show before. He's the big famous guy in England, and he started an association of people in England that learn how to cut hair for people that have sensory issues.
Yes.
And he's the one that years ago they first showed the picture of the little boy laying on his belly in the barber shop, and him getting down on the floor on his belly too to cut his hair. And that's Jim the barber. Boy, he's willing to go that extra mile to meet the kids wherever they are. But help us. What are some things?
Here's some ideas. I mean, and I love, Parker always has really good ideas, but let me just kind of approach it as a behaviorist. And you always want to, I guess, classify how aversive is this activity for my child? Like, what is the level of averse, I guess?
Yeah.
Because however aversive it is, you kind of need to match it with the same powerful reinforcer level, right? So let's find out. First of all, we talk about it being sensory. Is it a sensory issue that has to do with touching the scalp? Or is it a sensory issue that has to do with sound? Or is it a fear? I mean, that's another thing too, because sometimes our kids are perfectly fine when there are scissors, but they become very, very averse to clippers and the sound of the clippers. So identify that first, because you're going to shape each one of those. And I think it's important because sometimes you don't have to deal with clippers. Let's say if it's a girl with long hair. Yeah. Sometimes it's not even an issue when it has to do with like just clipping hair. Find out exactly what it is. And you can, if it's, you know your child, and you know if your child is, if you touch their scalp or if you move their hair in different ways, if that bothers them. And if that bothers them, then it is a sensory thing that has to do with the movement of the hair.
She wrote back in. She says he's okay with the clippers. I believe it's the hair falling on him. And can I tell you, when Jem was little, I remember one of his first haircuts. Because he would squirm and be everywhere, so we put him in the high chair to do it to contain him, and he had all these curls. I don't know if you guys realize I have like insanely curly hair, and when he was little, he did too. And then his went straight all of a sudden. But we cut off his curls, and they fell onto the little tray. And he cried, and he kept taking them and going like this to put them back because it was a part of him.
Yeah.
And he didn't understand.
Yeah, how interesting.
And that's but also, how about, like, I hate it, the sensory thing of when they cut my hair and there's those little, like, pins and needles.
The tiny little ones.
Oh, I have to take a shower immediately after a haircut. Doesn't matter what they put on me, drives me absolutely bat you know what.
That's interesting. So that's honestly the thought of, that it bothers the child when it falls on them is not something I would have thought of. And this is the thing with our kids. They have these different sensory things so, that if that is the exact thing, then I would recommend that you, Shannon just brought up another concept, which is it the actual feeling of the thing falling on them? Or is it that they're afraid that you're chopping off a piece of them because they don't understand the concept that hair regrows, right? Yeah. So again, with all of these, once you've identified exactly what it is, I would practice it. You can practice it on a doll. I mean, there are a lot of dolls now that are just for haircuts, right? Yeah. And you can actually give control to the child, allow the child to use those doll clippers or scissors and cut the hair of the doll and make sure you know, oh, look how beautiful it looks, and she's happy or he's happy or whatever it is. If it's a sensory thing where you're practicing it on the child, please make sure that you do it in a very, very gradual thing. This is one of the things you and I talk about often, is that we try to teach our kids things that are happening in day-to-day life, and we do it when it's supposed to happen, as opposed to doing a practice round. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So like, for instance, a lot of times when I say you want to introduce your child to going to the doctor, right? And they're nervous to go to the doctor. I hate to tell you, but the way to do it is to actually just drive to the doctor's office, reward the child, and come back home. Yeah. Then the next day, and you could do this with the hair salon too. So the next day you would actually go in, say hello to the hairdresser, and then come back home. And then the next day you might go there and watch another child get a haircut and give your child a big reward, you know, like they give lollipops or whatever. Stickers. And then come home, stickers, and then come home. And gradually, as your child acclimates to that place, the fear of that place goes away. And a lot of the kids' barbershops are really fun now. Oh, yeah. They have like cars you can ride around in and all that sort of stuff. And by the way, you can also practice this at home if you just get one of those, the thing that they put around you, like the apron. Yeah. And just have it at home. Like, practice the concept of putting the apron on the child. Maybe do a tiny little cut so that it falls, and laugh together and enjoy it, and maybe even make a craft with the hair or something like that. Because it's all about the experience of the child. In their mind, this is somehow producing fear. It's not about forcing them through it. Like, I just want to be very clear about that. Thank you. It is not about that. That is, I can't, when you have terror, which our kids experience sometimes for whatever reason, there's no amount of reward that's going to balance that out, because they're in terror. You know what I mean? So it's about doing it so slowly and pairing it with a lot of reward, that the whole experience is not fear-evoking anymore.
It's funny because, you know, we've already started working on the toy guide for this year. And it always gets me in the mindset thinking about toys and where we're going and in terms of play. But when I was a kid, one of the things that we did all the time, because we didn't have video games, is that you would play pretend, and you would set up, you know, you play school, or you play barbershop, or beauty parlor, or whatever. Doctor's office. We did all of that, right? And I see that with toys, we're starting to have a return to it in real life, but we're also having a return to it in terms of virtual video games, which I think is super important too. Because for about 20 years, we kind of removed that from the equation. Right. Like I'm going to try that sociodramatic play of I'm going to be someone other than who I am. Dress up, and I'm going to dress up, and I'm going to be the dentist right now, and I'm going to be the doctor. And you know, it's super important for our kids. It's rehearsal. Absolutely. We rehearse fire drills for a reason.
That's right. And Shannon, you bring up a really good point, because as we know, one of the areas that our children struggle with, and it impacts multiple areas of functioning, is that whole concept of perspective taking, theory of mind. And so playing at the role of someone else is in general a very hard task for our kids, and it is an extremely valuable task. If you can teach your child to pretend to be hairdresser, pretend to be doctor, dentist, whatever it is, and go through those things, it actually gives your child not just a perspective of what the other person is doing, but it gives them control. And I can't use that word enough times, because a lot of times we are very capable of doing whatever it is that we're supposed to do, as long as we're in control. The moment we lose control, we struggle, and we're fearful because we don't know what's happening to us. As opposed to, okay, I'm going to do something myself, then I'm going to do it step by step.
Yeah, absolutely. She says it's a great idea. She's going to have him practice on the doll. And she also says that he's been going to the same place since he was 1. His hairstylist has so much patience with him. She's offered to come over to our house also. Do you think we should do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that would be really anything you can do to acclimate him gradually and to produce, you know, and I mean, honestly, if she's willing, the way to do it is to do a very, very short session. Like, for instance, now we're going to cut 2 times, clip, clip, that's it.
Yeah.
And really reward him. And then the next time, now we're going to cut 5 times. Can you count with me? 1, 2, and make it so that he realizes it's benign. And then, of course, you know, I to this day hate going to the dentist. So I'm the person that requests the dentist put on something on TV.
Yes,
And
right.
of course, for kids, they have those now at salons. And if the child can engage with something that's a little bit distracting after they've already agreed to it. Like that, I think, is very important.
Oh, I appreciate you so much for saying that them agreeing to it.
Yeah.
That it's not just, because I think a lot of people
Are like,
kind
let
of
me
skip
distract
steps.
them.
They're like, here's an iPad. Now do it. Take the blood or you know, do whatever. You know, you need to. It's funny because I just was talking about this with my niece the other day. I had to go to the eye doctor, and I'm highly allergic to lidocaine, so I'm always on edge.
Yeah.
And whenever anybody walks towards me with a needle or anything, I go, slow your roll. You know, what's in that? I'm allergic to lidocaine. Are we prepared for this, right? And I went to the eye doctor, and this woman just came at me with this stuff to put it in, and I said, hold up, hold up. How about you tell me what's happening before you do it?
Yeah.
She goes, you're at the eye doctor. I'm going to put drops in your eyes. And I said, so you just like, do people just sit in a chair and you just come up and put, I said, talk to me before you touch me.
It's so,
And I mean, like, if I have to say that as an adult, I imagine what it's like for our kids. This person just comes at me with a pair of scissors.
Absolutely.
You know, that we need to be like having the conversation and communicating. And I love a good doctor who says, okay, now I'm going to come and I'm going to put eye drops in your eyes.
Everybody loves that.
Right?
That is such an awesome thing when doctors do that. Yeah.
Well, it's dying a death, apparently. Because you can't, and I know they wrote in my chart, difficult. I know that they did. I'm like a Seinfeld episode where Elaine was like, I'm going to get my record to see that they wrote that I'm difficult. And you know what? I don't care, because maybe they'll think about it before going to the next person.
I agree.
And yes, I am difficult, in case they were wondering, and I make no apologies for it. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now. To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here. Don't forget, you can watch Ask Dr. Doreen live every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time on autism-network.com. We hope to see you there.